Dean and Andy, thank you both so much for stopping by today. Before we get into all the fun that opening day baseball is going to be bringing us here in Michigan this weekend, I do want to focus a little bit on what we saw this past weekend as far as the NCAA tournament goes. Both Michigan State and Michigan, their seasons came to an end at the hands of the Auburn Tigers. I want to focus on the Wolverines first off. I mean, what did you make really not only of that final game against Auburn, but really the whole season in general, the first season under Dusty May? Dean, why don't you start first?
Yeah, I think we talked about a little bit last week with the job that Dusty May did, to take an 8-win team all the way to winning a Big Ten tournament championship and then make it to the Sweet 16. Just a remarkable turnaround. And Dusty May was the leader of that. As far as the game goes, I think it kind of played out the way you and I kind of talked about. Michigan was very competitive there in the first half and had an 8-9 point lead, and then Auburn kind of made that run, and turnovers killed Michigan once again. Yep. A great season for Michigan. Obviously, they lost Trey Donaldson in the transfer portal yesterday, which a lot of transfer portal things happened already this week. But just a great season by Michigan.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with any of that. I think the second half, the way that it disappeared so fast. Michigan got up by as many as 10. I believe it was 51-41 at one point in the second half, and just like that, Auburn showed what they can do with their length and their size and everything else. They're so good at moving the floor. Michigan showed their problems that they've had a lot throughout the season, where when they start missing shots on top of turning the ball over, they can't make up for their turnovers if they're not going to make buckets. And the 18-2 run was truly too much for Michigan to overcome there in the second half. But I don't think you can deny, again, as we kind of talked about last week, what Dusty May has done with this team and with this program, because it obviously was in a much worse spot with only 9 wins the season before. To be able to have the record that they had, be able to hang a banner in Chrysler Center, I think it says a lot about where Michigan basketball is at right now and going in the future. And as you mentioned with the transfer portal, there's already obviously a lot going on. Getting a player from North Carolina and then getting a player from Illinois, and then losing Trey Donaldson. So it's just it seems like this is how it's going to be under Dusty a little bit. He definitely knows how to use the transfer portal to his advantage. I know that he said when he first came to Michigan that he does want guys to stay in the program ultimately, so they don't always have to use the carousel that is the transfer portal. But right now I think he's still trying to find that mesh and who's going to be there for him for a while. And I right now, how can't you trust him with what he did this year? So good season for Michigan overall. I think it's impossible to say it wasn't.
Right. No, and then kind of on the flip side, Michigan State had a great regular season and then kind of was that 2 seed, knowing that they were going to have to take on the number 1 overall Auburn Tigers at the end. Best case scenario in that Elite 8 with a chance to go to the Final Four, going up against a team like Auburn and kind of just knowing all the players that they have. Would you, obviously you want to win the national championship, but could you really consider this a total a not great season or kind of a losing season in a way for the Spartans? Andy, if you want to take this one first.
No, for Michigan State, I think it's tough because I think a lot of people realize this was Izzo's best run in a long time and a chance to get to the Final Four. And I think any player on that team would have told you at the end of that game that, they felt like they did fail because that's what they wanted to get. But ultimately, this team did not start the season ranked. They weren't really projected to be a team that went that far either. I think everybody kind of gets caught up in Michigan's end of it, where they were, projected middle to bottom of the standings and everything else. Michigan State wasn't. They were projected 5th in the Big Ten. They definitely weren't projected to win it.
Right.
And to be able to go as far as they did still says a lot about them too. But obviously Auburn was just a buzzsaw they kind of ran into. The start of that game really just buried them. To get down 23-8, couldn't make any shots, and then Michigan State, as their problem has been all season, they can't make the three-pointer. There was a point towards the end of the year where they started to be able to shoot the three a little bit better, and they were shooting, I think, over their last 8-9 games, like a 35% clip, which was, with the way they play defense and how they rebound, that was good enough for Michigan State. But this game proved to show again, when they get down by that many points, it's hard for Michigan State to come back because they're not built like that. They're built to be in the game and then wear you down and win the game at the end. And they didn't have it in them. They were able to stay in the game and make a little bit of a comeback, but ultimately Auburn's lead at the beginning was really the reason they went on to win that game, in my opinion.
Dean, kind of on that same side, how do you view this Michigan State season, getting to the Elite Eight, getting that 2 seed, but then ultimately coming up short against Auburn?
Yeah, I totally agree with Andy. This was a team that was unranked, as Andy said. There were expectations, but I don't think there were expectations to win the Big Ten title. And they played so well. And, that was one thing I was going to talk about with Andy is, they struggled to shoot the three-pointer throughout the season, and it kind of showed up there in that Elite Eight game. But I think Tom Izzo did a great job. He didn't have a lot of transfers. He kind of had a lot of guys coming back from last year. Obviously, some freshmen contributed with Jace Richardson. Michigan State definitely exceeded expectations, and you're losing Trey Hellemans now in the transfer portal. So, we'll see what happens with Michigan State. Izzo's not going to be, I think, a coach he doesn't love the transfer portal. And so, Booker's also gone as well. Yeah, and so, we'll see what happens now going into next year. But, Tom Izzo is Tom Izzo. He's always going to have his teams ready to play and compete. And
I think a lot of people, like with Trey Holloman, as you mentioned, and you're talking about Izzo and, keeping players around, I think his reaction to when they lost that game says a lot about what Tom gets out of his players. Mm-hmm. It's just, you have a tough game like that where you go 0 for 10, but to react like that and, none of his teammates would say it's his fault. I think they would definitely all have his back. And I think all of Spartan Nation has his back. So it says a lot when you are able to keep players that long and you're able to build a family like Michigan State has with that team. So that's why it's so heartbreaking. I think that they didn't make it as far as they maybe wanted to.
Yeah, I definitely think, Phil, that was the goal for Michigan State, right? It was to get to the Final Four, try to get Izzo another national championship. Obviously, it has eluded him for 25 years now. Like you said, they just ran to a buzzsaw with Auburn's athletes and their ability to do lots of different things, and the slow start by Michigan State really cost them. So
right. And just kind of last question, kind of focusing on this. I know we don't have the Spartans or the Wolverines to talk about in the Final Four, but do you guys want to make a Final Four prediction? I mean, we've got Auburn and Florida on Saturday, as well as Duke and Houston, all the number 1 seeds. That hasn't happened since 2008 when the Memphis Tigers, UCLA Bruins, Kansas Jayhawks, North Carolina Tar Heels. I only know all of that information because I was in Memphis during that stretch of time. So, do you guys want to make a prediction who you think is going to win those Final Four matchups and ultimately who's going to be the national champion?
For sure. I can't see it not being Duke. I don't know if you guys have been able to watch them play in this tournament, but it's impossible. Cooper Flagg is that good. The way he passes the ball and just their whole team. They have so many athletes. Every team that they've played, they've pretty much ran out of the building. It's felt like. Alabama kind of stuck around for a little bit, but it really hasn't been close. I find it hard to believe that unless they just have a game where they can't make a shot, which happens in college basketball.
Right.
I find it hard to believe that they won't win the whole thing. So, and Houston has proved a lot of people wrong. I think they've always been the team that kind of has gotten upset a little bit before they get to the Final Four. This year they were able to finally do it. But this wasn't the tournament for the people to get upsets. That's for sure. Right. So I find it hard to believe it won't be Duke. I'm going to go with my projection that I had in most of my brackets. I think it's going to be Florida against Duke, and I think Duke will ultimately be too much.
I love agreeing with Andy, and it's kind of the same thing. So, I picked Duke as well, like Cooper Flagg, and nobody can guard him one-on-one. The things he's able to do on the court are just unbelievable. Obviously, he's going to be in the NBA next year, first-round pick.
Right.
Cooper Flagg is just, going to lead that team, I think, to a national championship. Florida, is, I think, as well, is going to be in the national championship game.
I think that game could go either way.
Yeah, I think it could.
Fair. Florida's kind of gotten by on thin ice so far this tournament in a lot of these games, but at the same time, when you're winning games that way, you learn how to win the games that way. Right. We talked about that at every level of these tournaments. So I think that, for Florida, I just think they'll find a way to get it done. But that one could go either way, I think.
Yep, definitely agree.
Well, for what it's worth, I think Houston's going to win. I just think this is Kelvin Sampson's time. Would really like to see that, and I think, you've got people that don't like Duke. You've got people that don't like the SEC and everything. I feel like this would just be kind of a win for a whole lot of different fans. I want to switch up gears now, Dean and Andy, and of course talk about what we've got upcoming later on this week. It is the Detroit Tigers home opener and the West Michigan Whitecaps home opener. Both very exciting days for baseball fans, sports fans in general here in Michigan. I want to focus on the Tigers first. They're going to be back in town, back in Detroit. Hopefully Mother Nature plays a little ball with them, and we're not going to have to deal with any rain for those games. But, how have you guys sort of liked the Detroit Tigers so far this season? A little tough to start the season with back-to-back series on the complete other side of the country.
Yeah, obviously, you're playing the World Series champs and the Dodgers, so not the best way to start out west. And, they actually played well. They had a chance to win a couple of those games. You know, they.
Can we talk about MLB replay a little bit?
Yeah.
How is that even possible in that game?
Yes.
That
So
was
there's a
ridiculous.
couple games that they could have won there, and it was nice to see them kind of bounce back here or on the first couple games of the Seattle series and win those games. Obviously, Tuesday night, combining one hitter, Casey Myers was great. So it was kind of, you know, Tigers are going to be a good team, right? They're going to be competitive every single night, and it's nice to see their bats kind of warming up, Torkelson getting off to a strong start. So very optimistic about the Tigers this season, and, you know, can't wait for them to come home in that crowd at Comerica, as Andy's going to find out on Friday is going to be electric.
Yes,
Right.
I will be there for opening day, and obviously at the time we're recording this, they are playing against Seattle right now to go 3-3. So hopefully they can do that and kind of bring the positive buzz going back to Comerica. But yeah, I think the Dodgers series, like you said, they definitely had a lot of chances to win those games. But I think everybody kind of coming into this season, any fan would, I think this way if you actually watch them every game. The run they went on at the end of last year is unbelievable, but was it really going to be sustained? I mean, these were a lot of guys that were unproven. If you remember a few years ago with the Tigers, when they had a decent season where they kind of were almost towards 500 again, they came back with a lot of guys that had career years, like Robbie Grossman and Jamer Candelario and those names. Didn't work out so great for them the next season. They were one of the worst teams in the Central. So this year, I think the difference is with AJ Hinch as their manager, with all these younger guys that have kind of bought into the way that he manages this team, it seems like they can go out and beat anybody no matter what name is on the back of the jersey or who's playing. Like, obviously the Dodgers are a pretty tough team. That's where talent might get you. And it proved to be that way in that series. And Skubal didn't have his best game. I think he would tell you that too. There's a couple videos out there where he actually did say to some fans that he didn't pitch his best. But yeah, I think that series aside, the way that they've responded already in Seattle, coming out with 6 runs in that first inning, then going out and getting a win last night against a really good pitcher in Gilbert. I think right now they're on the right path. I think that even with the injuries, if they can survive this month somewhere around 500, I think this team is going to be the team that wins the AL Central at the end of the year, just because I like the way that AJ manages, and their pitching staff is just unbelievable. I don't know if you guys got the chance to watch Casey Mize at all last night, but that was what you saw all spring out of him, and if he can be that as your 5, obviously Jackson Jobe, I think, he's going to have a lot of learning curves at this level. Who knows if he'll stay up throughout the whole season or not, but right now their pitching is so good that I think it'll keep him in any game if they can find a way to get good approaches, and AJ has that lineup ready every day with good approaches. So no matter who's out there in their lineup, as long as they can keep guys like Riley Green and Spencer and Carey hitting the way that they're hitting, I think they could be pretty good.
Yeah. Guys, real quick, I'm just curious, you know, a lot of expectations on this Tigers team.
Yeah.
And, you know, how are they going to respond to that? You know, like last year they kind of came out of nowhere to make the playoffs, even though some people thought they could make the playoffs. But this year, such high expectations on them. And personally, I do think they're going to be able to, you know, match those expectations and go out and play well every night and make the playoffs again. But it'll be interesting to see how they do now with lofty expectations placed upon them.
No, and all you do is add Gleyber Torres in the offseason. I mean, obviously Alex Bregman, if anybody saw that video where he came out and said he thought he was going to Detroit to the last minute, I feel like that was pretty heartbreaking for a lot of Tigers fans out there, just because right now it's, I mean, Javi played a good game the other night. I want to see it for 20 more games before I give him the compliments that I would give to be that good of an everyday third baseman. But yeah, with the very little additions they did to the lineup, I think that a lot of people kind of questioned if this team could be that good again. So it is going to be interesting. With so many expectations for a team that kind of found a way to get in the playoffs. I mean, the craziest story maybe in baseball history as far as a playoff race run. They brought back a lot of those same guys, but were they just hot for a really long period of time? And when you're that young, pitching adjusts to you, and there's tape out there. So many questions of this team, and if they can actually sustain it. But right now with the way it is, I like what I'm already seeing right now, because in previous seasons it just felt like they weren't as dialed in as they are. Every night when they go out there, they want to prove that they're that good. I feel like with the players in that lineup. So it's a lot of fun to watch, and it's definitely fun to have excitement around Detroit again. I can't wait to be down there on Friday. Yeah,
I think that excitement is, you know, something that I think a lot of people are kind of trying to get behind, especially going into that home opener. But you know, speaking of those expectations, I mean, do you really think that they might be warranted, just given the fact that everybody knows how improbable last season's run to the postseason was, and obviously they were able to make it to the final game of the NLDS against the Guardians. But I mean, do you think those expectations are really fair, considering this team is still relatively the same? Obviously, adding Torres, but then again, kind of, you know, are they going to need that unbelievable run at the end of the season to get there again?
I think, past Detroit teams have struggled in the first couple months of the season, right? So they've kind of got behind the 8 ball, and then they've had to really kind of grind and work their way back to being competitive and getting into the playoff race or whatever the case may be. So if they can get through the first couple months and play well, I think that's going to bode well for them going forward. I think last year's playoff push, playoff run just kind of gave a lot of guys on this team confidence.
Right.
Okay, like, hey, we can go out there and do this. We can play well. We can beat these teams, and they showed that. And I think that confidence is going to carry over into this season.
No, I definitely think so. I think when you talk about expectations, I don't know if it's necessarily fair for the players that they got this kind of expectation because a lot of them are still prospects. I mean, it's not even like they're. I mean, some of them have been around for a few years now. They're not considered prospects anymore, but still feels like it. I guess when you're only 2-3 years in your major league career, and again, like Jackson Jobe, he's a great talent. You see things, but he still is the top prospect in the Tiger system right now. They're not even sure if he's going to. So it's not fair to them. Where I would say that I would argue that it is fair for them to have these kind of expectations is on Scott Harris. I think when you have a season like that and you make the playoffs and you prove you can do it with those guys, and it's not like the Tigers are spending a lot of money on any of these guys right now. I know that's always the thing with Chris Ilitch, and if you go on the web, you're going to find a lot of arguments with if they spent enough or if they didn't. I think that'll be the biggest proving point on these expectations. Like, people expected them to go out and get a big name like Bregman. They didn't get it done. But last year they got it done their way, even when they didn't expect it. So if they get it done again their way, I don't think anybody's going to be complaining. If not, it's going to be they didn't fulfill expectations because they didn't go get enough in the offseason. I think that's going to kind of be what it comes down to, is if they truly did get enough or if they didn't.
Well, we're definitely going to be looking forward to Friday's game against the Chicago White Sox, the home opener for the Detroit Tigers. Andy will be down there. We'll be getting a full report over on woodtv.com from him for that. Now, I also want to touch on the Whitecaps, the minor league team for the Tigers. Also, a lot of anticipation for Friday's home opener over at LMCU Ballpark. That's going to be an exciting one. I mean, there's a lot of excitement around this team, especially with the fact that some of the Tigers' top prospects are going to be suiting up for the team this year.
Yeah, and actually, so Andy will be in Detroit. I'll be down at LMCU Ballpark for the Whitecaps opener. I'll be doing game story off of that. So, it'll be fun to see. Max Clark, Kevin McConaughey are back, which is very exciting for West Michigan fans. Obviously, we'll see how long they stick around. But these guys brought so much energy to the ballpark last year. That's why West Michigan's attendance has always been great through the years, but people came out to see Max Clark play. Obviously, Kevin McConaughey had an injury that kind of derailed the end of his season. But Max Clark is just a fun player to watch. And I know that Andy and Amir talked to him today during the Whitecaps Media Day. And, respectful guy, goes out and plays hard. And he can just do so many different things that just make him such a great prospect. And, I'm not going to be surprised if I see Max Clark in a Detroit Tigers uniform in the next couple of years.
Right.
Yeah, no, when it comes to Max Clark, I just getting done with media days and talking to them, I've talked to a lot of athletes at a lot of different levels, that if he ever makes it and makes it big, he is going to be a star. His personality is unbelievable. I mean, the kid, you think he's been doing it for years, and he's very young.
He's only 20 years old.
Yeah, exactly. So it's crazy to see, but the way he carries himself, I asked their coach, Tony Capicelli, if it is it real? Is that, do you see that behind the scenes too with him? And he's like, oh yeah, everything that he shows is who he is as a person. He's the same way. But yeah, you mentioned Kevin and his injury last year. That was really tough for him because I think he was just starting to kind of get it going a little bit with the Whitecaps. I think a lot of people were excited to see him, especially because he's an infielder and shortstop has not been. I mean, Trey Sweeney's doing pretty good right now for what they have, and that was a good trade by Scott Harris, in my opinion. But I think Kevin McGonigal is the guy that people want to see come up through the system and maybe be at that position in the future.
Yep.
I also asked him about how AJ manages and switches up all the positions so much at that level, and if he cares. And both of them, Max and Kevin, both nope, as long as I'm on the field and I'm helping the team, they don't care. That feels like how it is kind of from top to bottom, that high level with the Whitecaps, all the way up to the Tigers. They kind of understand you're going to be a part of a winning culture, but you're going to have to do what we ask to be a part of that. So that's kind of just how they roll. But yeah, if you can get the chance to get out to the Whitecaps this weekend, and you're around here, you should, because I don't think Max Clark and Kevin McGonigal are going to be here for very long. So you should definitely get the chance to go see them when you can. They're both great baseball players. It reminds me a lot of when Spencer Torkelson and Dylan Dingler and Riley Green were kind of around here, and people were looking. But it's different now because the Tigers made the playoffs last year. I feel like people are like, oh man, I can't wait to see that outfield with Kerry Carpenter, Riley Green, and Max Clark. They want to see that player now and be up close to him while they still can have the chance to. So yeah, he said that he's very excited. I think my favorite part of all the interviews today was Max said that it may be the best high A roster ever assembled.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's actually true or not. But.
Piggybacking off that, and so I talked to the general manager Jim Jarecki on Saturday morning, and he did say on paper, the Tigers or the Whitecaps are loaded. Like they should be.
They are the best farm system in all baseball.
They should be really, really good on paper. You know, we'll see what happens with the comings and goings of everybody. But right now, with their pitching staff and the guys that they have returning for opening day, they should be pretty good. And you know, it's been a long, long drought for the Whitecaps as far as making the playoffs. And you know, they've been really close the past 3 years. They had back-to-back years where they were one game out of the playoff spot. So, you know, they're looking to bring a playoff appearance back to West Michigan, and it's something that I think this team can do. Fans who come out to the ballpark on Friday night will definitely see some changes at the ballpark. They brought in the outfields. It's going to be a little shorter. More home runs are going to be seen this year, which is exciting for everybody. And, you know, no more lawn seats out there. So yeah, people are going to really see the changes that they've made, the improvements that they've made to that ballpark, and it's the first phase of I think 3 over the next 2-3 years, where that facility is really going to be turned into you know, a state-of-the-art, top-notch minor league ballpark that everybody will continue to want to go to.
Yeah, I just talked to some of their media relations people today. He told me that the concourse that is going to connect all the way around behind the stadium probably will be done in the next 2 years ish, but right now they already have both those decks done, and it's crazy to walk into and think about how at some point, I mean, you and me have been going to that ballpark for a long time.
Man, ever since I was a kid.
Yeah, exactly. To see how it's developed and turned into this is crazy. Obviously, a lot of this was put on by Major League Baseball because they had requirements for the MILB. Stadiums had to be up to a certain level to be able to even host teams anymore. So obviously the Whitecaps take pride in what they do there. They were able to, you know, get the money and the funds to be able to do that. But yeah, it's awesome to see these players walk in. They're wowed. I think the coolest thing that I saw today that I just didn't expect to see was they have a simulator of Comerica Park in their batting cages, and the hitters actually can see where they're hitting the ball to in the stadium. So it's almost like a golf simulator, if anybody's ever done that, where you can see it follows your ball. It does the same thing for them with the dimensions, how it lands. They have them simulate their players' speed and everything down the baseline and stuff. So it's just awesome equipment for development for them to be able to use that level, and they're all just totally geeked about it.
That's great.
It's pretty awesome to see, but
yeah. Another change is fans are used to seeing kind of the bullpen being on the side of the seeing the pitchers warm up on the side on the both first base and third base. Now they're going to be out in the outfield. And what I heard, they have cameras inside the clubhouse, the dugout area, and then also at the in the bullpen where they can actually see them warming up, who's warming up, and so actually in the press box they're going to have something as well, so media people can see who's warming up, because typically they just look down and say, all right, number 19 is warming up, but now they're going to have a chance to actually see on the monitor and let people know who's coming in at the time. So that's going to be another change there at the ballpark.
It's definitely exciting this year.
Yes, no, a lot to be excited about as far as baseball is concerned, and I feel like this is when excitement's at the highest, right at the beginning of the season. So definitely excited for the home openers for both the Tigers and the Whitecaps that are taking place this Friday. We're going to have extensive coverage of both of those that you can find over on wintv.com. Dean and Andy, thank you so much for stopping by today. We will see you again next week.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you.
All right, awesome. Sorry about that. I know we didn't get to touch on the Griffins.
No, that's
okay.
That's okay.
That's okay.
We'll be able to talk about that more.
We'll get them.